Hello, everyone. Michelle, I wish I came up to squabble up. That was next year. Um, wow. Good afternoon, everyone. What a profound joy and honor to be here, surrounded by 500 brilliant women and the allies who champion us, united in a powerful celebration of leadership, community, and possibility. This event is a very special one on the Coro calendar, happens to be my favorite, because it's really much more than an event. It's a movement. It's a celebration of bold voices, the ones that you just heard, of deep connection and a shared conviction that when women lead, everyone rises. At a time when our world feels increasingly complex, and Erin, thank you, I'm not using the word unprecedented anymore, the need for values-driven, courageous leadership has never felt greater. And that's the work that we're committed to at Coro every single day. For over 80 years, Coro has been a catalyst for communities of leaders across sectors, experiences, and perspectives, training them in the vital and too often overlooked art of leading with clarity, humility, and vision. And Coro is not just a leadership development institute, it's a proving ground. And I see so many alums in the room who I anticipate will agree. It's a place where leaders learn to navigate tension and fear, to build bridges when others build walls, and to take meaningful action rooted in reflection and purpose. Coro is also where I found my people, a community of leaders who care as deeply as I do about building a more inclusive future and a durable democracy. Through flagship programs like our Women in Leadership program, Fellows program, Lead LA, and many more, and I hope you'll look into our programs and recommend them to your networks, and if you have not taken a part in a Coro program, consider doing so. We cultivate cohorts of cross-sector changemakers, people who step forward and step up, not just to lead, but to transform. Participants in our programs don't just grow, they learn, they hold up a mirror and challenge themselves and one another. All so that when they leave our programs, they're ready to do the very hard work that needs to be done and to do it with integrity and an eye for impact. Coro programs are immersive, they're rigorous, and deeply rooted in personal values. For so many, they're life-changing, and not just in how leaders see themselves, but in what they believe is possible. And speaking of values-driven leadership, today, it is a tremendous honor for me to welcome a keynote speaker who embodies those values, who's fought for justice in boardrooms, in classrooms, in Capitol rooms, a woman who shaped policy that changes lives, a proud Coro alumna, a former state senator, the list is very long here, an assembly member. Supervisor Holly Mitchell has been a driving force for justice in Los Angeles and across California. Her leadership has inspired so many of us and has helped advance transformative policy on childcare, criminal justice reform, health equity, and economic inclusion. And I think we can all agree that she does it all with style, with strength, and heart. Today, we're not going to just talk policy. We can get that elsewhere. We're going to talk personhood, because I think we can all agree that behind every leader we admire is a human with roots, a story, lessons, questions, and dreams. Please welcome to the stage a daughter of South Los Angeles, a Coro alum, a mother, a mentor, a powerhouse, a leader, Supervisor Holly J. Mitchell. Thank you so much for being here. I've so been looking forward to this, in part because I get the easy job of asking the question, so I was looking forward to that, because you have the hard job, but also because I've had the tremendous honor of being in conversation with you and the authenticity with which you share your story has left me so immersed. And so everyone, you're in for a treat.
I don't know if it's a treat, because this could either go really well or really left. Because the conversation she was talking about was a small, intimate group. And it was the end of a tough week and day, and I got really free and loose. And I turned 60 last year, and I seem to be staying in the really free and loose lane. So there will be some of you who will leave thinking, she's a badass, she's something else, and some of you will be clutching your pearls. And you're welcome.
Well, with that, let's dive in.
Can I start real quick by
Yeah.
thanking you, thanking Coro, thanking the Skirball. The Skirball takes great risk, because between this gathering and the Mount St. Mary's Women's Gathering, I mean, women energy is all up in the rafters. So thank you, Skirball.
Yes.
I want to acknowledge the sisters, my fellow elected sisters who are my guests at the Mitchell table. You've got city council women and Team Mitchell members from all over the 2nd District. And I see my trusteeship sisters in the house, so thank you and thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, let's dive in. We're going to start with place, because, place is never just a backdrop. Place is a teacher, it's a mirror, it's a forge. The neighborhoods that we come from shape what we notice, what we fight for, what we dream is possible. And South LA, your home, holds multitudes. It's a place that's known systemic neglect and also radical imagination. It has raised organizers and artists, educators and electeds. It's a place of innovation, activation, resilience, and resistance. And we've seen you carry that place with you in every room you've entered, from the Capitol to the County Hall. So let's begin there. How did growing up in Los Angeles, and specifically South Los Angeles, shape your identity and your purpose?
So I wear a nameplate that says South Los, proudly. I'm a 3rd-generation native Angelino. My mother was an East Side girl, which meant she went to Jefferson High School. And I grew up going to the Easter Parade on Central Avenue and the Watts Festival. And I was born in '64 during the era of Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, the James Brown song. And I grew up with this principal, Constance King, in elementary school, who shopped at Joseph Magnin and was elegant. And we were scared to death of her. But she was tall, so I was looking at her, and she was elegant. And that was my South Los Angeles, a community where I saw women who looked like me be proud. I saw beautifully manicured lawns. I saw my mother, who was a social worker, so I grew up with this notion that literally all the adults in my life either worked for the county or they were on the county, because there was no distinction made. She wrote a grant and got to hire Miss Lorraine and Miss Geraldine, 2 women on her caseload, and then she would take us all to the Greek Theater, and one of them had 9 kids, one of them had 11 kids, and my mother had me, and we all went to the Greek Theater in the summertime. But I've recently also begun to correlate place with time and when, because it was at a choral function, the youth summer program, where I heard young people talk about coming from South LA, and their entire experience was from a deficit perspective. And they talked about post-92 uprising. And I thought, we have different orientations of the same place. And it made me deeply sad. And maybe it shouldn't make me sad, because frankly, it was their orientation of place that drove them to Coro, that they want to be leaders to change it. So for me, it was place and the era in which I had the privilege of coming up in South Los.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. In that, I heard place, and time, and also the people. You named your mother and the women, elegantly leading. And so let's go deeper on that, because we know that even the most singular paths are shaped by collective influence, by the people who saw something in us before we had the words for it, who asked the right questions, held up the mirror, or walked with us through uncertainty. We know that leadership is forged not only in what we do, but in who surrounds us when the road bends. So who are the people for you? The elders, the peers, the guides, the truth tellers, the fire starters, the sacred challengers, who helped shape your leadership, who poured into you in the moments that mattered most, during the doubts, the pivots, the high-stake forks in the road?
There are so many I can't begin to count them. There's so many. My mother was an absolute badass. She and my godmother, Ruth Russian, were appointees of Governor Brown in his first administration. As I listened to Stephanie, they were in a white male-dominated profession of corrections, and they brought their full selves to the job every day. Ruth was in Ebony magazine in the 70s, leading the largest corrections department in the country in cornrows. My mother was a warden at CIW, and like Constance King, believed in showing up. She was heavy her entire life, and her theory was just because you're heavy doesn't mean you shouldn't be cute. So she stayed fine, which is a problem when you are a public servant, when you come up with that expectations. In fact, everybody look down at your shoes. Everybody stop and look down at your shoes. Are you happy with the choice you made today? Really? I am so mad at myself. Now, my little lace peds are cute, but I am so angry because I got a pair of Fluvogs that are purple and black and white check that I usually wear with this suit, but it would have been an extra 30 seconds to go get them out of the other closet, and I didn't go. So the women who poured into me would be really disappointed in this probably 40-year-old Salvatore patent leather. What those women poured into me, I've been 6 feet tall since I was 13. And so my dad told me, don't roll your shoulders, the basketball, don't do that. And my mom said, they're gonna see you when you walk in, so you should give them something to look at. So wearing a size 12 shoe when I was younger, a AA and quad last. That means my heel was a 4A, AA. So at some point in my life, I decided, well, since they're going to see my foot before I round the corner, I should give them something to look at. The women in my life, Jewel Greenwood, my grandmother, Holly Blanks, my paternal great-grandmother who I'm named for, who was a nurse midwife in Mississippi, who my dad thought she was amazing because she was 6 feet tall and she had her own horse and buggy. For him, that was leadership. My grandmother, Jewel, who delivered my mom at a home birth at 15, where Ruth Temple, the first black woman OBGYN in the state of California, delivered her. My grandmother, great-grandmother Pauline Bruce, who taught Mrs. Wrigley how to drive. Ruth Russian. The founders of the Mothers of East LA and the Mothers of Watts, Sweet Alice and Miss Gutierrez, who recently passed. Diane Watson, my first and forever boss, were women who selflessly poured into me. Women who I think saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and made an investment of time, of resources, of redirection, of redirection, and I am the profound beneficiary. Now, I'm poured into every day today. I had the pleasure of meeting the badass state treasurer for New Mexico, Laura Montoya, a couple weeks ago. Look her up. She said at this dinner, and I've written it down and I've quoted it every time I've been someplace. Leadership is defined as stepping up to protect values when others fail to. She said DEI is not a political imperative, it's an economic one. And as a fiduciary, she's clear that her job is to manage risk, but the question she's pondering is not simply what's the liability, but what's the cost of complacency? So when I serve in the Metro Board under Stephanie Wiggins, now she talked to y'all and gave you the impression that she really liked me. Truth of the matter is I get on her nerves because I'm always asking for free Metro. Why can't we ride for free? I want the mothers in their strollers not to have to take the babies out of the strollers when they board the bus. But it's women like Stephanie who I am watching in a non-traditional role lean in and talk about culture in a space that you don't often hear those conversations. So not only do I have these women who poured into me historically, I learn from emerging and current leaders every day. And I'm so deeply grateful for those opportunities.
Yeah, the ancestors have come up today in our previous conversation, so thank you for giving us a glimpse into the shoulders that you stand on, to the emerging women who inspire you, and then also for inspiring us. And I know earlier I shared the transformative leadership that you've advanced in Los Angeles and California, but I recently was in another part of the country, and the Crown Act came up, and you've had a global impact. So let me reframe that to say you have shaped what belonging looks like globally. So thank you for that. Thank you. And now I want actually the quote that you shared, that you heard from New Mexico's treasurer.
Yes.
Let's build on that. So I'm going to pivot us to leading through crisis and change. Just a little small topic here. We are living through a time of profound disruption and transformation, from global pandemics to economic instability, from climate-driven emergencies to a fraying of civic trust. I think we can all agree that the challenges we face today are complex, interwoven. They feel a little greater than the challenges we felt before, and they're deeply felt in an epicenter like Los Angeles, and they don't fall evenly. Mm-hmm. Our systems are being tested, but so is our leadership every day. And in moments when our leadership is being tested, the old playbooks, not only do they not always work, they seldom work. Leadership has to adapt not just to changing conditions, but to our changing world. And so from your purview, I want to ask, what does leadership require today that it may not have 10 years ago? And to layer on that, what's something you've had to unlearn yourself to lead effectively in this new era?
I don't know that leadership is different than it was 10 years ago. I think sometimes it's hard to have a frank, honest conversation about leadership. I think too few people, Coro taught me this, actually study leadership. You look at us as elected leaders and assume we're leaders. No, we're just people who got elected. And leaders come in all shapes and sizes. When my Coro year, I remember my labor assignment. And he was with AFSCME, and he was organizing student teachers at UCLA. From him, and it's from sometimes, you don't have to have the title of leader to be the leader. Coro taught us that. What's the first assignment when you send us to the city?
Logic study.
In your logic study, You go to a place, I went to El Sereno. I'd never been to El Sereno in my life. And we had to figure out who really ran El Sereno. So if you think about your own neighborhoods and your cities or your unincorporated communities, sometimes it's an elected leader, sometimes it's a corporate leader, but sometimes it's somebody else who really runs the thing. And so I think it's up to us to think more broadly and organic and different about what leadership looks like. For many people, my dreadlocked, tattooed self does not come across as a leader. I don't look like a leader to many. And so I think it's about all of us really recalibrating what we mean when we use the word and what we expect from leaders. And it is up to leaders to do the hard work of studying the science of leadership and making the decision about what kind of leader you choose to be. I have made the conscious decision to be a leader who leads with courage. I talked about tattoo wearing. I have the term courage tattooed on my forearm. As my former colleague Sheila Kuehl says, and it's on your forearm facing out for a reason. I'm like, you smart, Sheila. Yes, it is. And so I don't know that leading 10 years ago was any different. It is about being a student of leadership. It is about being confident in your leadership and listening to your gut and people who know more than you do, and trusting them and your gut to make a decision and lean in. Mm. And if you are wrong, saying so and self-correct. I mean, it sounds really kind of sophomoric when you listen to all those words, so I'm not sure why so many people struggle with it. I'm not sure why some of my elected colleagues don't make it a habit of saying, you know, I don't know. I'll look into that and get back to you. That's very reasonable. I trust a leader who is willing to acknowledge that I may have asked a question or raised an issue that they don't know. But they're going to follow up on it and get back to me. So I think it's really being a student of leadership. What kind of leader do you choose to be? I have chosen to be a values-driven leader. I've taken my nonprofit kind of leadership orientation to elected office. And so my team and I establish our core values. I establish a corporate culture, if you will, that guides our work, guides my work as a leader. So my team is in alignment with me. We are values-driven. We just finalized our 7 core values and had to describe them, and there's some unique terminology in there. Our values include things like equity, being people-centered, proximity, integrity, fearless, intentional, inquisitive, and an interesting one that may not be on your values list, but is unique to me and my team, and it's gangsta. I think being a leader requires a little gangster most days. Now, we've had an interesting experience in my team because some people say, oh, clutch their pearls. Oh, there she goes, Jesus. What does she mean by that? So we've had to walk through it and define it. So we define gangster as the ability to strategically operate with grit and grace. Mm-hmm. That we create opportunities rather than wait for them. That's what I think leadership requires in times of peace and in times of utter, absolute chaos, which is what we are experiencing now, be it natural disaster and all of the ramifications that come from it, be it a national administration who hates all of us in this room and all that we stand for in LA County, It's going to take a little bit of gangster for us to survive it and not only live through it, but to be successful and thrive, because I don't believe we have another choice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I told y'all you were going to be worried. I told you. Some of you in there was like, oh my God, she said gangster. Yeah, I did.
I hope you'll
Gangster. I said it 5 times.
I hope you'll all log on Monday to see Coro's revised value competency scale. So that'll be updated soon. Being a student of leadership and it really being a lifelong practice, I think so many of us can agree that that's a guiding principle. And so there's a definition of leadership that's imprinted on me that we leverage in Coro, and not because it's easy, but because it's honest. It says that leadership is the art of disappointing people at a rate that they can absorb. Because when you lead with purpose, especially in public service, there are trade-offs. Not everyone will agree. Not everyone will applaud. Sometimes the very act of exercising leadership means letting someone down, and still the work has to be done. So how have you learned to hold that tension? And you talked about trusting your gut, and I'd love to hear about how you've cultivated that trust in your gut, because it's not automatic. We learn that. And how have you learned to hold the tension between staying rooted in the leadership that you know you need to exercise and the tough choices you need to make, and then navigating the disappointments that exercising leadership inevitably brings?
So Coro had a profound impact on my life. I have no idea what I had for dinner yesterday, but I remember in a Friday session hearing someone define politics as the art of who gets what when. And similarly with leadership, you're making tough decisions. You try to avoid a zero-sum game, but you make tough choices and decisions every day. I was mid-40s when I decided to lose my mind and run for public office. And a part of that, I think, the benefit for me and those I represent is that my rudder was well-defined and strong. And running for office hasn't altered my rudder. And while I don't support term limits, I also ran in an era and a place of term limits, so I'm clear that it's not an opportunity I'll have forever. So the theory was, I'm going to swing hard every time to deliver for my constituents and do what I fundamentally believe is right. Our statement we share in the office is we're going to leave the 2nd district better than we found it. That means we are going to build housing. That means we're going to be expansive when we talk about what we build, for whom, and where. And those are tough conversations to have in the political arena, because all of you want me to solve for homelessness. Many of you don't want your own block to look any different as a result of the solution. But my ultimate reality is there are 80,000, conservatively speaking, family, friends, and neighbors who are unhoused on the streets of LA every night, and an unknown number who are housing vulnerable. And so in this place and time, with the attention on this issue, with the bully pulpit and platform I've been given, I'm going to put my foot on the accelerator. And as I've heard over the years, I'm going to drive it like I stole it. Because the window of opportunity won't always be what it is today. In fact, it's closing a little bit. The governor's already eliminated some of the HAP funding, as my city council women are painfully aware. And so I've got to drive through that crack in the door to get the women who are living in RVs that have been rented to them by landlords, who are paying to live in that squalor, to try to keep themselves safe. For the transition age foster youth, for the senior women who are the #1 increasing population of unhoused, because our Social Security or our pensions can't keep pace with the cost of housing in LA, because we didn't keep pace with building as we should have for the last several decades. So I pull out my courage, show it to others and myself, and make the decisions that I believe are fundamentally what LA needs. And policy making, and it's certainly an example in my work with Metro. There's an African proverb that talks about, you make decisions today for 100 years in the future. It's a Native American proverb. So I'm making decisions today to build the kind of Los Angeles that I can grow old in with dignity, and my family and the young people in my family can thrive. The kind of LA that gave my grandmother and my mother opportunities. So there may be tough decisions we have to make today that make some people uncomfortable who've already acquired certain assets, but we have to make space and place for the next generation of Angelenos. And that's what I keep my eye on, that prize. And it's really easy because I'm not going to run for any other elected office ever. So I'd say that too.
So we might as well drive it like we stole it.
Drive it like we stole it.
I love that.
Drive it like you stole it.
Yes. We often think of power and vulnerability as an unlikely pair because, especially in traditionally masculine definitions of power, strength, authority, and control, we often leave out vulnerability, but we know that true power lies in vulnerability. And the courage to show our humanity, our humility, to admit mistakes, and what you shared earlier to say, I don't know, I will look into that. That kind of humility, embracing our failures as growth, we know that these are the layers of vulnerability that connect us, that build trust, that foster connection, but that are also risky. How have you reconciled that balance between power and vulnerability in your leadership? And can you share a moment where embracing vulnerability actually strengthened your leadership?
I just don't know any other way to be, and it's too hard to try to figure it out at this stage in life. And the reality is, we all know the perpetrators, we see them. So we know when people aren't being honest and being their true selves, and we form an opinion about it. And so I think it's less risky to tell your truth, because more often than not, there is someone else in the room that has been right there with you. When I decided to run for office in 2010, we talked about the Crown Act, we talked about the locks. I approached my consultants and said, okay, well, I've seen how you all work, and I've seen the changes in women candidates is that who I think it is? She looks so different. And I choose to believe that people are going to elect me based on what's inside of my head as opposed to how I choose to wear my hair. And so when I decided to lock at 40 as the CEO of Crystal Stairs, I knew it would be interpreted as a political statement. Was it? Maybe. It was also because I was 40 and I decided I was grown and I was going to do grown women things. I also knew that I was a leader of an organization, so I could set a tone and send a message about cultural acceptance, about what professionalism really looks like. And so I thought it was important, and needed my consultants to know that please don't come at me about if you could just change your hair, if you could just take off the big hoop earrings, if you could just not wear all the jewelry and the bright colors and the fluvogs, we might get you elected. And I decided that there were more women in my district who wore big hoop earrings and would think my crazy shoes were pretty funky and would see themselves in me. And that I wasn't going to change to get elected. I had a job I loved. I was at Crystal Stairs and was really deeply conflicted about leaving there. And so I thought, if I lose, I lose. But I really just fundamentally believe that people can, like babies. Babies know perpetrators. Our pets know perpetrators. We know perpetrators. And so I think you take a greater risk at not being your true, authentic self, because people know when you're not.
That's it. Yeah.
And I can honestly say I've never regretted telling my story. I was a single adoptive parent when I went to the legislature, and I had to figure out how to navigate that space. And when I did, that was held together by spit and glue most days. The women who came after me and ran for office made a beeline for me. Okay, how did you do this? Is he in school? What do you do? How do you do on the weekends? So I, in carving a path for myself, helped other women know they could do it too.
Yeah.
And I was honest with them. It is hard as hell. There is no pension. This is not a place for parenting. When Ryan was born, I was a lobbyist for the Western Center on Law and Poverty, and Gil Cedillo was chair of Budget Sub 3. His wife at the time was suffering from cancer, so he was coming home midweek to go with her to her cancer treatment. So he was holding his Budget Sub 3 hearing meetings on Sunday afternoon. I had a new baby. There's no child care on Sundays, so as he would say, oh, the Western Center baby is in the back row. Yes, he is. Mitchell, I'm asking you to expand Medi-Cal with him on my shoulder. You do what you have to do to represent, to be in this space. I wasn't about being embarrassed. You gonna have a budget hearing on Sunday? Here I am with my baby on my shoulder to deliver a message that I thought it was important. And even my presence there with the baby on my shoulder also sent a sign to who they were legislating on behalf of and the decisions and choices we have to make every day to be in the room where power is.
Thank you. On behalf of so many of us in here, thank you for carving that path and seeing a place that you did not feel was for children and families and fighting every day to make it one. Thank you. Well, we're going to dive deeper into the reality that.
I feel like I've already
Yeah.
opened my.
Yeah.
Did you see my Superwoman ass, Billy? Did you see it? Let me close my jacket so you can't see my Superwoman.
And then there's more. We're going to go even deeper. We know that growth. Everything you've shared now just reinforces that growth doesn't happen in our comfort zones. It happens in the moments that stretch us, that humble us, and sometimes the ones that knock us flat. Can you share a best mistake, something that felt like a setback, but ultimately became a source of learning and transformation for you?
I think losing my mind and making the decision to run for the state assembly. Taking a 50% pay cut. I was sitting in a budget hearing, Congresswoman Sidney Kemlager Dove, and I had taken busloads of child care providers and working mothers to Sacramento to fight the then proposed $1 billion cut out of child care, 2008. And I sat in the hearing, Assembly Budget Subcommittee is 3 people. And I thought 3 people, none of whom were from LA County, the county with 1/3 of the state's children, were about to make a decision that was going to set us back light years in terms of expecting CalWorks women to go to work and all the things. And I sat in that hearing and got mad enough to decide to run. There was no plan. Diane Watson had been asking me to run for years. I was like, no. I'm a great number 2. I'm a great chief. I'm a great speechwriter. I saw that up close and personal when she ran for this seat, and it was bloody. Those of you who are old enough remember that race between Yvonne Brathwaite Burke and Diane Watson. It was bloody, and I thought, I don't need that in my life. I can just work for the person in the seat. And that worked out really well for me for a good number of years until that budget hearing. And I realized that I had more lived experience, more information. I knew the budget. I knew the consequences of the program they were about to cut. And if not me, who? Was it ideal for my life? No, Ryan was 8. How was I going to go to Sacramento, and how was I going to do that? So then I lose my mind, and I jump in. Then we look across the country. I said, well, I need an example, because Diane's not the example, because Diane was everywhere, all the things, all the time. I can't lead like her, and that's my only frame of reference. So then we looked nationally. We called Emily's list. We called California list, and they all said, oh, there is no example like you. Middle class, not affluent, working, single parent of a school-age child, black woman. Nope, no example. I got mad again and formed my shoe closet. Not a kitchen cabinet, because I don't do kitchen. My group was the shoe closet. And the shoe closet sat around and for night after night, about a week. And they would fight in my living room. She can't do it. It's not fair to Ryan, blah, 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 blah. How's she going to afford it? Then they'd get mad and say she has to do it. They went round and round. And I just came in one night and said, we're going to do it. We have to figure out how. So I ran. We figured it out, I guess, sort of. Then there was a budget that I was budget sub-chair on, that I voted for. It was a tough budget. There were cuts, but I thought we had navigated a path and thread the needle. And I voted on that budget June 15th. And then the pro tem came the next day and said, well, we've got a budget bill, Junior. Don't worry, it's not much change in it. It'll be fine. I'm staff. I know how to do track changes in a piece of legislation. I look at it, and it's drastically different. And it undoes a lot of the work we did in Health and Human Services. The money we put into the DD community to increase the rates to providers had been removed, all these things. So I'm budget subcommittee chair. I want to be Senate budget committee chair one day. Everybody knows that I've been very public. Do I vote no on a budget? Holly, you'll be ostracized. You can't vote no. So I went for a walk that morning and said, I am not voting for that. You misrepresented, A, and I can't have chaired hours upon hours upon hours of a budget subcommittee and then stand there on the floor and act like none of that, their voices didn't matter. I can't do that. So I didn't vote on the budget. It's a part of leadership. That's not what you're supposed to do, are you? You know I'm not supposed to do that. 2 years later, I was appointed budget chair by that same pro tem. So sometimes we think that it's a risk or it may not be the right thing, but that's when you have to follow your gut and decide what are you going to be able to live with. I'm clear. I got great phone skills. Any of you all could hire me to answer your phones. I can always get a job. I'm good. So if I'm not given the privilege of serving in elected office anymore because I did what I thought was right, I will take that, all work is noble, and go get me a job. I truly believe that in my core. Yeah. And so that has helped guide me in making what have sometimes been really tough decisions. Because I don't have to be elected. I happen to think I'm kind of good at it, but I don't have to be elected. Yeah. I have to work because I ain't got no money. And I like nice shoes.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be in elected office.
That's right.
If it is going to require that I compromise my core values and principles in order to keep that elected office, I'm not doing that. And I'm really comfortable with that decision.
Thank you for distinguishing for us that leadership is an action that transcends roles.
It does.
It's the exercise, and remaining true to our integrity is what matters most.
And that may not matter most to everybody, frankly. And that's important for us to know, too. When we look at people who self-identify as leaders and people who ask for our votes and our support, that's important for us to understand that, too, and ask them those questions.
Yeah. Well, you've shared so much with us today, and you and I and many in this room, we share a Coro lineage, and I actually want to bring up a photo because I am curious about what you might tell.
Are they gonna bring it up?
So, well, there is
That's my Coro class.
That's your Coro class, and there you are. And
there I am.
What would you tell her now, today, if you had the
Oh,
opportunity?
Lord, have mercy. Interesting story with the Crown Act. I wore my hair braided all through high school and undergrad. The elaborate braids with beads. We would go all over the state and get shells and alabaster, just the elaborate. So my godmother and my mother came to me and said, I got accepted to Coro, so excited. We think you should not wear your hair braided for Coro. Why? I'm who I am. And, if you think I'm a badass at 60, you could have managed what I thought I was at 22. They sent me an article written by Dianne Feinstein, who talked about the uniform of women in elected office. And she talked, remember, and the little bow tie, the IBM little bow tie. And so my godmother sent me this article. So I decided to take my hair out of braids, cut my hair in a style. So when I look at her, as you see, I was the only African American in that class. I'm 22, fresh out of undergrad. You're in all of these mind-expanding, life-altering settings, and you're just trying to hold your own. I never really suffered from imposter syndrome, but I didn't want to be perceived as the weakest link. And so I would tell her, it is really okay that you took your braids out. You represent it. You still have lasting relationships with Lisa Kalustian and Steve Sugarman 40 some odd years later. They are in your life today. I would say that Coro for me that year was the absolute best decision I could have made for myself, because it also taught me how I learned, and it's experiential. That all of those settings that I use Coro principles today. At Crystal Stairs, my COO was a Coron. I have sent and support Coro fellows. I have hosted internships. I come speak anytime you come ask me because of what Coro exposed me to and did for me, and I believe in it fundamentally. And so I would tell her, girl, you have no idea. I met Diane Watson at the Coro dinner in Sacramento, where I swapped seat assignments with a fellow Coron. I know y'all don't say Coron anymore, but I'm old.
We do. We still
Okay,
do.
Coron.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to sit next to the first black woman elected to the state Senate, who had been in all of my California politics textbooks as an undergrad, and I talked to her nonstop all night. Willie Housey, one of the first black male lobbyists in Sacramento, had been her escort, and I'm sure he took her because he intended to talk to her about stuff, and he was looking at me like, who are you? And stop talking. The conversation would die down, and I would think of something else to say. And in Coro, I learned, I was, fangirling, I think is the term. I was fangirling. I couldn't believe that I had proximity to this woman who made history. I was at UC Riverside. I didn't have proximity to a lot of women who made history. I was just beyond. I didn't quit my job. I finished Coro, and I went back to being a group counselor at Riverside County Juvenile Hall because I was going to be safe. And she called Juvenile Hall looking for me. Can you imagine the director of the hall calling you in the girls' security unit? There's a state senator on the phone for you. I was like, please send relief, and I quit. And she hired me. I met her at the Coro dinner. So I would tell her, you're going to be all right.
You're going to be all right.
You're going to be all right.
And look at me today in proximity with a woman who made history.
Those are some bad shoes you have on, as a matter of fact.
You know, with how
You gave more thought to your shoes than I did today.
it was in large part because what I expected you to come here wearing
I
today,
know.
I had to bring it.
Right.
And can you
And I
imagine
failed
didn't?
you.
No, you never fail me. I want to acknowledge you. Thank you for the generations who will stand on your shoulders. You fought hard, lifted us up, and it cleared a path for so many. You say repeatedly, and Billy, I have a treat for you. You've said that your leadership sometimes comes down to how you stand literally, that your body language says, I'm here, I'm ready, let's go. Would you share your signature stance with us and invite us to claim it?
I know you all really think I'm silly, and to a large degree I am. Billy and I, and we were all in an event.
Right.
There it is. There's Calustian. Hey, Calustian. Karen, I was running for mayor, and I was asked to speak. And there is a commercial, I don't see it as much anymore, where it's a little girl, and it's a Tide commercial. And the dad talks about washing her cape. And she assumes a posture and looks off over the horizon, and the wind machine is flowing. And it just tickles me to death because I'm like, she looks like a leader. It's in the arch of her back. She's either a really incredible actress or she's going to be president. And so to be silly at this fundraiser, and Karen was there. It was kind of early in the game, and early in races, it can be kind of hard. And I wore my Wonder Woman t-shirt, and Karen really thinks I'm nuts. And I said, I want Karen, you're going to stand here in front of us, and all of us are going to assume this position with you. And we stood up and we acted like the girl in the commercial. You throw your shoulders back, you imagine the Beyonce wind machine is blowing, and that there's a cape fluttering behind you. And how can you not feel like, I got this, I can conquer anything? And we all put her in the middle of a circle, and we did it, and she did it. And a week later, she sent me a picture of herself assuming the position, standing in the middle of the rotunda of City Hall. It sounds ridiculous. There's something about it. So the next time you've got a tough budget hearing, a board meeting, a tough conversation, even if you don't stand, just envision the little girl, throw your shoulders back, do whatever you have to do to feel the power literally in your body. For you to feel like, I got this.
Can we practice it? Let's do it, everybody.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Head up, you're looking off on the horizon, shoulders back. You're powerful. Your cape is blowing in the wind. Your theme music is playing. Put your hands on your hips, right? Back, shoulders back. Look at you. You got this. I can't believe you made us do that.
How fun. Thank you, everybody. We so grateful to you, Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank you for this opportunity, I do.
I know I'll be taking gems into my weekend, into my year, into my career, and I anticipate the same is true for all of you. That is it for us.